Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's nice to see such a large group. It's also nice to be able to see over the podium. The last talk I gave, I was sort of joking that they should have given me a phone book or something, I would say. So I wanted to take about 10 minutes of your time and elaborate a little bit, I guess, on some of the points that have been raised in Bill and Jill's presentation and tell you a little bit about Canada Gap and how it fits into this whole scene of private standards that were developed by the industry. It's an example of what Jill was talking about, where it was a consensus approach to developing a private voluntary standard. My presentation is not up, so I guess I'll just continue until it comes up. Thank you. When I had an advance look at Jill and Bill's presentation, I thought there was a nice fit in terms of positioning my comments as a bit of a case study, perhaps, for something that's happened in Canada in this whole world of private standards. So we're an example of one of these programs that has sprung up because there was a proliferation of proprietary standards, meaning that in the fruit and vegetable industry in Canada 10 or 15 years ago, producers were having to meet a different set of standards for every customer they sold to. So if you had 5 customers, guess what? You had 5 different standards you had to meet, 5 different audits, et cetera, et cetera. So the Canada Gap program was really born out of that reality where it was necessary to get together as an industry, engage the customer side, and try to develop a standard that would be uniformly accepted. Our first focus was to have it accepted domestically in Canada, and then, of course, because the fruit and vegetable industry in Canada is a strong contingent of exporters as well, to have it accepted internationally. So we designed a comprehensive food safety program. The main thrust came from the producer side, similar to what Jill talked about in the UK with the assured produce standard. So it was industry-led by the National Producer Association, the Canadian Horticultural Council, and then we engaged others along the supply chain to participate with us in developing the standard. All of this was made possible through funding from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. I don't think it would have happened if we hadn't been able to work with government as a funding partner, as well as a participant in the process of development. So we had the Canadian Food Inspection Agency at the table helping us to develop the standard. The other reality that producers in Canada in the fruit and veg sector were facing in the 90s was customers perceived a lack of government oversight and regulation of the industry. And that's why all of these proprietary programs started to spring up, because outbreaks started happening in the fresh produce sector, and customers were raising questions, well, where is CFIA? Why isn't CFIA on the farm? Et cetera, et cetera. So in that context, it became necessary to work on a standard. I think I've covered these points, so I'm going to skip this slide for the sake of time. I think I've covered these points too. I'm way ahead of myself. I hope you have the slides if you want to refer to the points. So I mentioned that we received federal funding to do our program development, and the second sort of context in which we elaborated the standard was, as Jill mentioned, within a HACCP approach. So this was the condition, this was the context in which Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada was funding industry-developed programs. They had to be developed using a recognized, systematic hazard analysis type approach. So that gave some rigor to what was developed. And we've been participating since the early 2000s in the Canadian government recognition program for industry-developed food safety initiatives. We actually took each of our modules through government technical review, which took us 5 years. So there's a lot of work, there's a lot of technical work that's gone into the standard behind the scenes. But the goal is to end up with something then that's technically credible, that's recognized by customers, and that producers can implement. Jill talked a little bit about this too, where a private standard becomes a voluntary private standard, becomes a de facto mandatory standard because the retailers, processors, food service companies who are buying the product require it in order to participate in the marketplace. And that is essentially what has happened with Canada GAP. So it's a voluntary standard. It's not mandated by government. It's not mandated by the trade association, but it's mandated by the customers who are purchasing the product. And again, it's an example of what Jill was talking about. It's a business-to-business assurance. There will not be a label on a package of tomatoes or apples that says Canada GAP certified. The certificate goes from the supplier to his or her direct customer. And it's a way to manage liability for the buyer and for the supplier. We've had great success with Canada GAP acceptance in Canada. Most of the major retailers will either mandate a Canada GAP certificate or accept it among other options like Global GAP or Primus GFS or other types of programs that are similar to ours. One interesting thing that continues to happen, it's been going on for a long time and it's still happening, is that not everybody is asking for it. Not all of the customers are asking for it. So this creates an unlevel playing field within the industry where one farmer can be doing everything and getting certified and jumping through all the hoops, and his neighbor who sells to a different retailer still is not required to do anything. So I think that's a bit of a microcosm, perhaps, of what is happening internationally as well. We're still seeing that domestically, too. Our next big leap was to seek international recognition for the program, and we did this by accessing the Global Food Safety Initiative benchmarking system. As Jill explained, it's an industry-led effort to harmonize requirements across food safety standards so that we don't end up with 300 different food safety programs, but rather the programs become more and more alike and are basically accepted everywhere once they have gone through this benchmarking process. So it's a rigorous process. It looks at both the technical standard, what producers have to do on the farm or at the packing level, and it looks at how we, Canada GAP, manages the certification scheme. So we were the first Canadian program to go through that benchmarking, and we still are the only Canadian program that has done that. We were first benchmarked in 2010, and every time GFSI increases its requirements, the recognized programs have to go through a re-benchmarking. So you guys are the first to hear the breaking news that we have now, just yesterday it was announced that we have been recognized again for the new GFSI version 6 requirements. So we're very pleased to maintain that recognition. It's critical for international acceptance of our program for our producers. I'm going to skip that for the sake of time. Jill talked about GFSI as well. Final thoughts. I'd like to pick up on some of the points around opportunities for convergence. GFSI itself, although a private initiative led by retailers and manufacturers and increasingly suppliers, has borrowed heavily on other private systems like ISO, as well as on public standard systems like Codex. So the current GFSI requirements on the technical side, for instance, for fruit and vegetables, are based on Codex requirements for fruit and vegetables. So we see more and more, everybody trying to borrow on the efforts of another rather than reinventing the wheel over and over again. So I think, there are glimmers of hope here that maybe there are ways for public, private initiatives to build on each other and work together. Bill talked about FSMA in the US, which of course I haven't gone through the 600 or 700 pages of the new produce rule yet, but certainly one of the key elements in FDA being able to deliver that inspection mandate it's been given is to look at ways to cooperate with existing third-party certification systems, private standards, private models of delivery in order to meet the targets of improving food safety. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.